Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor, Sooners YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Parker Thune, and we got Spencer Forsythe on the board. Happy Valentine's to everybody out there with their loved ones. I know there will be a lot of people out there. Oh my God, Parker. There'll be a lot of people out there watching this later on. And because it's Valentine's Day, we're probably only going to go 30, 35 minutes, kind of chop it off for you guys. That way you guys don't get cut off from your wives or your husbands or whatever that may happen. Um, that is the most important thing today. So, but we still wanted to bring this to you guys. So, Parker, before we get to that, we've got to get an ad read out of the way. And then we're going to talk about a lot of different things on here.
Very appropriate ad read for this Valentine's Day, Brandon. This episode of OU Insider Live is brought to you by Joy Mode. Guys, Joy Mode makes all natural and science-backed supplements dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions. Joy Mode is an alternative to the blue pill, but its worth doesn't start and stop there. It also supports cardiovascular health, athletic performance, and healthy blood pressure. It comes in a palm-sized packet, just like your traditional pre-workout mix. All you have to do is mix it into 6 to 8 ounces of water, wait 45 minutes, and watch the magic unfold. Here are the game changers. All ingredients have been assessed in peer-reviewed journals, and all ingredients have been studied and researched in humans. You'll never go back to prescription or over-the-counter drugs after trying Joy Mode, which contains clinically supported doses of arginine nitrate, L-citrulline, Panax ginseng, and vitamin C. So want to see your confidence skyrocket? Go to usejoymode.com for 20% off with code INSIDER. That's 20% off and free shipping with code INSIDER at usejoymode.com. Joy Mode, ingredients with integrity.
There you go. Look, we can do, I think, how about this? Let's kind of mingle with the crowd here. Let them ask us questions. Let us do all kinds of stuff on here. Oh, there we go. We already got I'm not even going to say their name because he's just a troll. So anyways, but all the other guys that think they want to ask questions to us, we'll answer them. We're here for you. Let's do that. We're going to go a little bit more interactive today, since it's a little bit shorter for you guys. So if you got a question for us, ask away, and we will try to answer them best we can. I just did a post-national signing day kind of tell all. I did the part one today where I got 6 or 7 questions answered. And I go in very thoroughly and answer the questions as deep and as possible as we can as far as the recruitments go for the 2024 class. A lot of people have the David Stone question if Miami was really that close to flipping him. There's a lot of other questions regarding Zadavian Sims, Jay Sean Ross, like the normal questions you would figure would need and want to be answered there on OU Insider VIP for you guys. Parker, let's start with basketball, why the questions are coming in.
Really, huh?
Yeah, let's do it.
Gonna crush everyone's spirit right off the bat.
That's what we're here for on Valentine's Day. That's what we're here for.
Not a great situation.
Yeah, it's not. It's actually really, really bad. The basketball team, it was hard to watch. Okay. First and foremost, I get Hughley's bad knee. He's not out there. Suarez being injured with about 7 minutes left to go in the second half. Not ideal. Do we even know? Have we heard the verdict on that? I haven't been paying attention or really read into it too much.
No, nothing yet.
It looked nasty, by the way. It did not look good. He couldn't even put weight on it. And it looked like it was his left ankle, knee area is where what seemed to be the issue. And then Northweather, I mean, I get he's young, but anytime somebody applies any sort of pressure to him, he buckles, turns the ball over. The whole team turns the ball over too much.
Yeah, Northweather's inexperienced. Godwin is too easy to move. If Hughley's out for any extended period of time whatsoever, this team is in trouble because their weakness is in the front court. And when you make that front court even shallower, proverbially speaking, than it already is, with the potential loss of not only Hughley but Rivaldo Soares, ugh, it's an
Mm-hmm.
ugly picture, especially with a team like Kansas coming to town, which has one of the best bigs in the country in 7'1" Hunter Dickinson. I think put what 23 on Oklahoma up at Allen Fieldhouse last month. He might double that if the Sooners are limited to Sam Godwin and Luke Northweather in the paint on Saturday. And
Yeah,
Jalen Moore's been good, but Jalen Moore is not well, and he's big, but he's not that big. He's not center big, you know.
no, he's not. And I think you're gonna have to figure something out. You might have to go small, like you said. Like I think that might be your best bet. Um, I mean, what you've got Kansas, Houston, Iowa State. I think those are your next three, right? Is that right? Or is Iowa State last? I can't remember. But you still have them on your schedule. And those are two top five teams and the number 10 team in the country.
Last two games of the season, you get Cincinnati at home and
Mm-hmm.
you are at Texas. Two winnable games. Which again, the Sooners are 18-7, 18-8, right? They have 18 wins right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get to 20, you're in the tournament. Don't really have to sweat it. But even so, man, it's hard to convince yourself right now that if this team is at anything less than full strength heading
No.
into March, that I don't know if they can win a tournament game. And they may get one. They may get one just because Javian McCollum heats up on somebody and drops 25, 30 points in the first round. But as the season gets deeper and deeper, it just becomes increasingly clear that this team does not have the pieces to mount a deep postseason run.
Yeah.
Unless McCollum's just playing out of his mind. I mean, he's the X factor. He's the guy that can elevate everything just because of that pure scoring talent, scoring ability. He's going to have a big game every single postseason game that the Sooners play, both in the Big 12 tournament and in the NCAA tournament, for the Sooners to actually travel. And if he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, there's a night last night where the shots aren't falling for him, or just for whatever reason Porter's keeping him on the pine. Yeah, it's not going to be a pretty picture for this team
Yeah.
offensively.
So there was a sequence. I want to say it was probably maybe 4 minutes left to go in the second half. And McCollum made a couple of drives where he did kind of the SGA drive, turnaround, fadeaway jumper from about 10 to 12 feet away. And he's nails when he does that. But he doesn't do it often enough. There's against the zone in particular, in they were running essentially a 1-1-3 that was more or less looked like a matchup 2-3 zone. And the right there, like the elbows, that's where you got to get them. You got to drive to the elbows, essentially. And I'm not talking about the perimeter elbows. I'm talking like free throw line elbows. You got to drive. You've got to pull up. You've got to make them collapse and come up, because when the times that they did that, there was a baseline drive on the backside of the baseline, and there were layups, there's dish layups, and they just they're not consistent enough. They try to do this play catch around the perimeter, and it gets really stagnant. And that's been the Achilles heel of this Oklahoma offense all season, is stagnation. There's a lot of watching, not doing. And in a zone, against a zone defense, you can't be stagnant. You've got to move. You've got to hit the short corner. You've got to hit the high post. You've got to swing it and get them out of balance. That way you can dribble, drive, and dish. Like there's so many things that you've got to do. And I know that because most teams play man, right? So the issue you run into is that I bet Moser and 99% of the other coaches in college maybe have 5 sets, maybe 6 sets total of zone beating offensive plays because you don't run into it. You don't practice it a lot because you go up against a lot of matching mans, essentially where it looks like it's zone, but it's not. It's really manned up, and everybody just kind of switches off. You do a lot of switching. There's a lot of, and there's a man defense that we ran in high school that was essentially zone, but it wasn't where you drew an imaginary line down the center of the court and you played help side, a lot of help side, all that type of stuff. And they just don't practice zone enough. And when you have an athletic team like Oklahoma does, use it, drive. But the thing is you can do all the driving you want. If you're going to turn the ball over when you do it, what does it matter?
Yeah.
What does it matter? How many turnovers did they have last night?
Way too many to win a basketball game. That's for sure. And
no doubt.
That's the other concerning aspect of the way they play offense. Sometimes it's almost like the gears are spinning too quickly and they get hasty, they get sloppy, they turn the ball over and they find themselves in a hole quickly. And give credit to Baylor last night as well because they shot the ball exceedingly well from beyond the arc. They deserve to win that basketball game. Probably win even if Oklahoma plays a pretty good game the way that they were shooting. But Oklahoma just looked non-competitive for the final 30 minutes of that game, and that's inexcusable. They'll make the tournament barring an utter catastrophic collapse. Like at this point, if they don't make the tournament with how this season has started and what a monumental collapse it would take down the stretch to miss the tournament, that's where you start to worry about Porter Moser's job security. But assuming they make the tournament, it is what it is. Maybe they surprise us all. Maybe they go on a run. Who knows? Again, I think they got the backcourt to do it. It's just a matter of whether that front court can hold up, whether Godwin, Hughley, Jalen Moore, Northweather can give them the type of play on the interior that's capable of keeping them in basketball games at the very least.
There's a couple questions here if you want to get to them. Is Marcus I don't okay.
I think I was about to go here anyway, Brandon.
Go for it. Go there.
We've seen Marcus Wimberly predictions drop by the truckload over the last 36 hours. What do you make of that?
OU leads. OU leads. But I reported this weeks ago. They're not going to take a commitment right now, from my understanding, until they get an and this came straight from Wimberly himself, until they see him in person. So you're looking at late April, or after it. I guess you're going to look at April. I think April 1st is when the eval period starts, right? Again, is that when it starts up, or is it after that? When is the eval period?
Yeah, so he's coming back on April 9th. That's when he'll be back at Oklahoma.
Okay, but they need a live eval like at his practice. I can't remember when that starts. I know it's in May-ish area. Is probably when that'll take place.
I have the calendar in my camera. Okay. I will tell you the evaluation period.
Spring eval. I know in May they do it around Memorial Day. And obviously camp season, if he goes to camp at Oklahoma in June. So it'll be around that area and then official visits are kicking off about that time as well. So it'll all be in that area, right?
So there's a contact period from April 15th through May 25th.
That's it. That's it. That's where they can go in contact. That's where they can go to the schools, take their photos, watch their spring practices, all that type of stuff. And then it rolls over within 6 days later. It's a dead period through Memorial Day, and then it kicks off contact. Well, not really a quiet period, excuse me, when camps can take place on campus, and they can start evaluating them through camps through June, all through June. And then the last week of July, or last 2 weeks of July, one of the two, is how that works. So Um, it'll be during that time that they get a full eval of Wimberly. But I thought all those were premature. And it's not necessarily that I don't think Wimberly wouldn't commit right now, because I think he probably would. But I think it's more or less Oklahoma kind of wants to they're so short on spots, they want to make the right decision.
Yeah.
And so when you want to make the right decision, you don't want to miss. You don't want to miss on thinking, okay, we're going to take Amari and Robinson. Okay, maybe we aren't. Like, I think at the end of the day, they'll probably take Wimberly, but not probably. I think they will at some point down the line. I think they will, but I just think they've got to see him in person first, because to me, he's a really good player. He's long, he's rangy. I know he really impressed Venables and that staff when they saw him in person. They were shocked by how long he was and how big he was when he came to visit them. So I like him a lot, and I know he and his dad watched the show. So thank you guys for watching the show. They reached out to us and told me that the other day. So I really appreciate that as well. But um, he's a fantastic player, Parker.
Yeah.
And
Eh,
I just Oklahoma's they're in a they're in a tough spot. Short on numbers, and they're in good spots with several players. So we'll see how it works out. But I do think they end up taking two, maybe three safeties if they can make it work numbers wise, which I think after spring, Parker, that's where it's going to happen. Like the attrition, who are they going to cut is the big
Yeah,
question. How many are they going to cut
man, it's
after
hard,
spring?
isn't it? It's hard, isn't
Yep.
it? Because really any of the past 3, 4 cycles, you said, okay, Oklahoma easily has room to take 3 safeties. No question about it.
Mhm.
This year it's different because Brandon Hall is too good at his job in that respect. He has
Mhm.
gotten that room so stacked that, at a certain point, you have an excess of depth and an excess of talent, and you have scholarships that could probably and should probably be allocated elsewhere. And so, man, I think Marcus Wimberly is a hand in glove fit at OU. I think everything he is about is also everything that Oklahoma is about. I think that pairing makes a ton of sense. But again, the reason why you haven't dropped a prediction, the reason why I haven't dropped a prediction is because end of the day, our subscribers know what's going on. This is why you go over to ouinsider.com, grab a subscription for a few bucks a month, stay up to date, because you're going to know more than just the long and short. You're going to know all of what is going on with every single one of these recruitments. But for people that don't, for people that only follow recruiting on social media, all those people are the ones that let's say the Sooners end up getting a commitment from Jonah Williams and Amarian Robinson, and Wimberly's kind of on the outside looking in, right? Just because of the numbers game. At that point, it's all of those people that don't know all of the behind the scenes action and that haven't stayed abreast of it, that are sitting there wondering what on earth happened with OU and Marcus Wimberly. Why
Mhm.
did I see all those predictions? Why was he going to commit and now he's not? And so you don't want to feed that hysteria just for the sake of driving up the hype, because yes, OU leads for Wimberly. They're certainly, I think, on paper, the school that makes the most sense, but there are other factors at play that are going to affect the outcome of that recruitment. And so, yes, I think premature is the right word, not necessarily incorrect. Time will tell, but premature is definitely the right word.
We go from joy mode to premature. There we go. All right. All right. There he is. There it is. All right. Boomer 129 with a question. What do you guys think of the Vegas odds of winning 7 games for OU in the SEC year one? I'm gonna let you answer first.
I get it, because OU's breaking in a new quarterback, and
Mhm.
nationally, I think that's what's going to draw the most attention, right? Because if you're one of those folks that's trying to evaluate 50, 60 different Power 5 teams and the type of success that they're going to have next season, you obviously don't have enough time or enough mental capacity to go in depth on every single one of those teams, right? And so I get it. You look at the stuff that sticks out, and the stuff that sticks out is Dylan Gabriel transferred to Oregon. Oklahoma's breaking in a redshirt freshman, or I suppose it's a rising sophomore. He couldn't redshirt by end of the season anymore, but they're breaking in a rising sophomore with one career start in Jackson Arnold. And Jackson Arnold turned the ball over 4 times in his only collegiate start. Is he going to be able to keep the wheels on the schooner, as it were, and make sure Oklahoma stays afloat in the SEC? And I think the preconceived notions of what Oklahoma is also kind of feed into that, because in years past, it was very easy to look at Oklahoma as a football team and say, okay, if the quarterback play isn't superb, they're not going to win a ton of football games, because that has been true in years past. Absent superb quarterback play, Oklahoma did not have the dudes. They did not have the firepower to win a lot of football games. A lot of it was contingent upon quarterback play, but that era has come and passed. And so when you dig a little deeper, and you are mindful of the fact that Oklahoma brings back 9 of 11 starters on the defensive side of the ball, and that they'll have one of the more talented wide receiver rooms in the country. And they have to replace their entire starting offensive line, but they've got plenty of dudes with experience, plenty of dudes who are capable of doing so. And you're not just throwing 5 newbies to the wolves out there to try and protect Jackson Arnold. When you're mindful of those things, I think you start to see you start to get a greater sense of the complete picture. And with Oklahoma, I feel much the same way heading into this season as I did last season. Right, you got to get to 9 wins, and there's a path to double-digit wins. Certainly, it's kind of dependent upon where some of the other SEC teams fall, as far as what their overall level of talent retention is. Not necessarily in an objective sense, like, oh, they bring these dudes back and these dudes back and these dudes back. But I think about a team like Alabama, right, that has undergone significant changes. Auburn kind of falls in that same category, right? You have a lot of turnover one year to the next. And is everything going to stay the same? Are things going to get better? Or are you going to experience a few more bumps in the road? And so, you look at that Alabama game, especially in November, and that could just as easily be a win as it could be a loss, right? Come November, Alabama could be undefeated. Or come November, Alabama could be 6-4, like they were in year 1 under Nick Saban back in 2007, before they got that thing really rolling. And so it's not all in Oklahoma's hand. It's not all contingent upon what Oklahoma is as a football team. I think it's also contingent upon what some of those opponents actually look like this fall. But I think there are 9 wins on that schedule, certainly. And I think there's a path to winning double-digit games. I think if you win 9 or more games, you feel good about year 1 in the SEC. And you are on the fringe of playoff contention. Probably need 10 regular season wins in order to be seriously in play for one of those 12 spots come Selection Sunday. But 9 wins, all told, you'll take that in year 1 in the SEC, I think, if you're an Oklahoma fan with a level head.
Yeah, I think the level head part is where it's got to be. The fan base, which obviously there's a good portion of it that has expectations that might be unrealistic, and you know what? Maybe they are realistic, and we're the ones looking at it from a very pessimistic point of view. Whatever that may be, Oklahoma has to start out at least 3-0, and they got to go at least 3-1 through the first 4 games of the season. And more or less, they probably need to go 4-0. If Oklahoma can hold serve at home, and that's 7 games, you hold serve at home. And yes, one of the home games is Tennessee. One of the home games is Alabama. But if you can hold serve at home, that's huge. Now all you have to do is out of Auburn, Texas, Ole Miss, Missouri, and LSU. And all of those are either neutral site or road games, right? If you can hold serve at home with those seven and you go 3-2 in those other 5 games, that's 10 wins. If you go 2-3, that's 9 wins. So that's to me, that's the way you do it. You've got to hold serve at home. Any mishap, any hiccup at Owen Field, and you're looking at an 8-4, 7-5 season, in my opinion. I just don't see any other way around it unless Oklahoma somehow gets really hot on that back end of that schedule. And that's possible, but that is brutal.
And
Outside
I
of
know
Maine, that is absolutely brutal.
and I know maybe it's not the most sizable of discrepancies, but the home schedule is definitely easier than the road schedule, all in all, isn't it? Because you got to go to Baton
Mhm.
Rouge, you got to go to Oxford. You can make the argument that those are the two hardest games on Oklahoma's schedule. Both of them are on the road. You got to go to Columbia. I know Missouri is kind of a running joke amongst the OU fan base, but they did win 11 games last year. They're no
I don't
slouch
think
of a
it's a running
program.
joke to OU fans. I think Missouri fans feel like OU's a joke because they haven't played in the SEC, and that's what Missouri fans are clinging to is you just don't know. You don't know how much we've changed since we've been in the SEC and you've been in the Big 12. And Josh Pate said it best, like, well, I don't understand. I don't think you understand what you think's going to happen. Like here, like you think you're just going to bum rush Oklahoma, and that's not. No, that's not going to happen. And he's talking that not Missouri. He's saying that the SEC as a whole, some of the fans outside of Alabama and Georgia, right? Like they're going to be tough regardless. Um, I have them between 8-4 and 10-2. I haven't really made up my mind yet, but that's kind of my range right now for Oklahoma. Is that crazy?
No, I think that's pretty spot on. If I had to pick if I had to pick it right now, knowing what we know right now
Mm-hmm.
about the SEC and about the teams that Oklahoma's going to play, I would say they finish 9-3 in the regular season.
I'm probably with you right there. Yeah.
I don't think they beat LSU in Death Valley, and I think there are two other losses on that schedule somewhere, and I can't necessarily point to them, tell you
Nessmeyer.
what they're going to be, but Ole Miss, that's a very losable game. Alabama, for obvious reasons, very losable game. Tennessee is a losable game. Missouri, like that's the thing about playing in the SEC is that there are no games. Well, within reason, there are a few teams. I would say South Carolina is probably one of the few teams in the SEC where you look at that schedule next year and you say that should be a win. There's no reason why that shouldn't be a win for Oklahoma.
Mm.
Even a team like Tennessee, that has been a second tier SEC program in recent years, that's going to be a challenge for Oklahoma. And when they come to Owen Field, you're not going to be taking anything for granted. It's not going to be a case of, it's like Baylor coming to town in recent years. You play your game as the University of Oklahoma Sooners. You should win the football game. No, you're going to have less control.
Mm-hmm. No, that's right. It's not the same. You are not the big dog every time you walk. I mean, you are outside of Georgia and Alabama, but you're not the feared big dog that you were in the Big 12 in the SEC. Any given night is that L can come on you real quick. Um State 5 stinks. I love that name. He says, is Oklahoma trending on any D linemen with the lower numbers? Are they starting? Oh, excuse me. Maybe I'm reading that wrong. Are they starting a trend on D line with lower numbers? And I'm assuming he's talking about 0, 1, 9, 8. That's just a new thing that since they've allowed players to have single digits, it just looks cool on some of the big guys that can run really fast. And that's why they do it. Outside of that, I think is that what he's asking?
I
That,
guess.
yeah.
There were photos circulating on social media today of David Stone and his number 0,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
I've said this for a while. Like, end of the day, I don't care what number these kids wear, but I with linebackers in particular, seems like every single linebacker these days has a single digit number or a number in the teens or maybe the 20s. We need a
Mhm.
linebacker wearing like 54 again. We need a good
72.
hard hitting middle linebacker wearing a number in the 50s. There's just something so much more fearsome about that. You know, like and I don't want to necessarily use the example. Like, let's take Desan McCullough for an example, right? Desan McCullough looks great running out there in a number 1, but you slap 58 on his back, he looks like a menace. Tell
He
me I'm
looks
wrong.
he looks out of place with 58. I'm just gonna be honest with you. That just looks weird. And it may be just because we've gotten so used to the single digits on a lot of these guys, and some of these odd numbers just aren't seen anymore. Now, 58 as an edge rusher, that's badass. I love it. But, you know, the last guy wasn't Von Miller was 58, right? So that's the
Yes.
last really cool 58 that I can remember. All right. I don't know how to. I'm going to ask it. Lindell's small, and I don't think he meant it like this, but who is the hottest player we need to sign next? And I think he says OU needs to sign next. That's what he's saying.
Okay. Who do they need to sign in the
I,
2025
I'm
cycle?
assuming. I don't think he's talking about the kid's looks. So, who do you think
Pretty
they need to
safe
sign?
assumption.
Yep. Who do you think they need to sign? I guess he's talking about a commit or get a
So
commit.
I was having this conversation the other day. I think it was Blake that asked me this on the Mulling It Over podcast. Who's the must-have guy for Oklahoma in the class of 2025? Last year, that guy was David Stone, right? Oklahoma had to have
Yes.
David Stone. And if it wasn't David Stone, it was Devon Mitchell because of the obvious uh, lack of depth at tight end and lack of top end talent at tight end. And so those two guys fell into legit must get territory. But I think it says something about this roster and where Venables and the staff have gotten it to that I don't really feel like there is a must get guy in the 2025 class. And look, I think everybody's first answer is going to be Jonah Williams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Top 10 player in the country. And if there is an answer to the question, that's probably it. But even so,
Susie. I Haywood.
if you don't get Jonah Williams, Brandon Hall's room is going to be fine. As we
Mm-hmm.
talked about earlier, right? You get Omarion Robinson, Marcus Wimberly, you're cool. You're chilling. And so that's why I don't like I truly don't think there is a must get guy. And again, Fasusi, he's another one that his name would probably be thrown around, but I've seen enough from Bill Bedenbow to know that it doesn't really matter who he gets. He's going to turn his guys into NFL caliber football players. Not all of them. Some of them will wash out. Some of them will get eaten alive. Some of them will never play or they'll transfer. But the ones that do see the field under Bill Bedenbow, those guys go far. And I have that expectation regardless of what his recruiting
Mm-hmm.
class looks like. So I, for the first time, I think in my time covering OU recruiting, Brandon, I truly don't feel like there's a player in this class that Oklahoma has to have. Now, the guy I like the best, I don't think it's a secret. I think Lincoln Cure is going to be a cheat code for this Oklahoma offense if they get him on board. And obviously, Jonah Williams has the potential to be one of the best defenders in America, regardless of where he plays his college ball. Sooner fans would love for that to be in Norman. But I think this roster's in good enough shape. I think they've got a strong enough contingent of commits right now. And I think they're in good shape with enough of their top targets that you're not necessarily pinning the perception of the recruiting class as a whole on one particular individual, the way that maybe you were last year with somebody like David Stone.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I think look, number one, Oklahoma has recruited so well the last three cycles that they, like you said, they've built so much depth that you don't look at it, and so much talent on top, like the talent that they have, the roster they have. I spoke to a source today that was like, and I said it earlier, it is going to be hard to find guys that to you need to move on to make room for, because Oklahoma's at a point now that if you let somebody go, that's going to be a really good player, or potentially a really good player down the line for you. And you don't want to let that person go. So Venables and that staff they're between a rock and a hard place, no matter what. But that also makes it to where, like you just said, you don't look at this class or anybody in this class and go, well, if they don't get that guy, they're screwed. Now, I will say this: the offensive line depth in the 2025 class, particularly in this region, is so good this cycle, much like we've said the 2024 defensive line class was, right, in this region. You didn't want to miss, because that doesn't happen all the time. Now, the offensive line happens more than the defensive line in this region, and there's variable reasons for that. But you still want to hit, and Oklahoma is going to open up the pocketbooks for the offensive line, because Ty Haywood's a 5-star. Lamont Rogers is fringe or is a 5-star. Fasusi's a 5-star, and they're within a stone's throw from Norman. You don't, if you can get those three guys in this class, you take them 10 times over, and that's what you go with. On the flip side, you still have to get defensive line talent. No matter what, you want to continue to build off of what you did in 23 or 22, 23, and 24 when you got Grayson Halton, right? Like, he's going to be a good player. In 23, you ended up with PJ Adebawore, or say it for me. Just say the last name for me so I don't screw it up. I just did.
Oh, Eddie Barbara.
Adebawore. There you go. PJ Adebawore. And so I always screw it up, so I'll let you say it first. But you want to continually build off that talent that you've been bringing in. And so they did a really good job in 24 bringing in interior guys and edge guys. There isn't a lot of elite guys like Lincoln Curious, and I get it. Right now, the notion is that Texas really isn't pushing hard for Lincoln Cure, and he may not be a take. Or, excuse me, I said the name wrong. Not Lincoln Cure. Holy crap. I just went blank now. D lineman, Texas. Um, Help me out, Parker.
D lineman from Texas.
Yeah, he's a Texas legacy.
Oh, Landon Rink.
Landon Rink. Dadgum, I said Lincoln Cure and I didn't mean it. Because we were talking about Lincoln Cure just a second ago. Landon Rink. Yeah, he may not be a take for Texas. Like that, there's some buzz out there that is a thing. But so is Colton Vasek.
Yeah.
So don't get your hopes up there. That said, if it continues to trend like that to the point where he does end up being in play for Oklahoma way down the line, I think he would be massive for Oklahoma and be one that he would be one of those guys that, yeah, you want to take him right here, right now, because he's that good. I think Trent Wilson is too out in DC. And I think CJ Nixon is a guy that you have to take. So you've got to add on to the defensive line. I think you have to stay. It starts and ends up front with me. Every class, no matter what. Just because in the SEC, that's where it's at. Oklahoma's always going to have good wide receivers. They're always going to have good corners, or talented corners, not so much good, but talented corners that if they're developed, they can be really good. They're always going to have talented linebackers or good linebackers because Brent Venables is your head coach. You're always going to have good safeties because Brandon Hall is a menace on the recruiting trail. You're always going to have good running backs. You're always going to have quarterbacks because you're good at your Oklahoma. So it starts and ends for me on the offensive line. And yeah, Bill Beatenbow develops. But wouldn't it be nice if he didn't have to develop a 3-star and he just walked in with Ty Haywood, Fasusi, and Rogers in this class? If you're him, like that'd be awesome. And so for me, it's those guys. That's where it is. It's always up front for me, first and foremost. And I'm sure there's fans that believe that. And yeah, I get Trent Wilson, Penn State. Going to be really hard to pull him away from there. But if he's visiting Oklahoma on March 9th. And if that visit takes place and he doesn't back out of it, then we can talk of, okay, where does Oklahoma stand there? Right? Like until then, it's just whatever. Who's Nico? Thank you so much for the super chat. Parker, how did you become an OU fan? As a fellow Omaha native myself, I've always wondered. Also, do we like our chances with Barnes at linebacker? I'll answer the Barnes part. Yes. Okay, then now the fan part.
Yeah. Now, I mean,
Oklahoma, very good chance.
Yeah, and Oklahoma's only taking one more linebacker. It might be Barnes. It might be somebody like Christian Jones. It might be Dawson Merritt. But to answer your question, yes, Oklahoma is in good shape with Elijah Barnes and probably going to end up getting an OV from him. As far as how I became who I am today in the OU community, how I ended up in Oklahoma in the first place, it's actually quite simple. Both my parents are OU grads. And so growing up, I always wanted to attend the University of Oklahoma and was determined that I was going to do whatever it took in order to make sure that I could attend the University of Oklahoma. And obviously I did. Here I am today. I stuck around, didn't just get my degree and get out. I've lived here for almost 7 years now. So all in all, I mean, yeah, that's a very abbreviated version of the story. I've told the full version on other podcasts, but yeah, always watched OU growing up. First concrete football memories of any kind are memories of watching Jason White and Adrian Peterson. So that is some backdrop on, how a Cornhusker not a Cornhusker by birth. I was actually born in Austin. How about that? Isn't that crazy? Born in Austin, grew up in Nebraska, and ended up going to college and putting down roots and getting a job covering the University of Oklahoma Sooners. So I've really been through it all. Been from Longhorn country to Cornhusker country to now God's country, the Sooner State. Love it here.
Have you so State 5 stinks says Jonah Williams, I've been reading that I guess he meant that he said but that he's starting to trend towards A&M in Texas. I haven't heard that.
Nor have I. Where have you read that, sir? I would love to know.
No, I'm not saying it's not true, but I know that he's been still talking to Oklahoma, and that just this past weekend, everybody walked away after interviewing him feeling like Oklahoma is a leader, and he basically told multiple reporters that OU and Ohio State were the two that were for sure going to get official visits. So that was it. Again, those would be the two that make sense. If you're like Ohio State doesn't really make sense from a two sport aspect, right? Just doesn't. You look at Ohio State baseball and you're like, no. Now Texas baseball, it compares with Oklahoma.
Yeah, but
A&M. A&M. I don't think so.
If Jonah Williams does end up taking an official visit to the University of Oklahoma, and there is no reason whatsoever as of now to think that that would not be the case, when he does take that OV and he sits down in Skip Johnson's office to talk with him, that is about the point at which you're going to have to convince me that Jonah Williams ends up anywhere but Oklahoma, because Skip Johnson, man, that dude's got the Midas touch with anybody that he sits down with. I mean, Taylor Tatum was silent committed to USC when he showed up to Oklahoma.
He was.
James Nesta
Reggie
was
Willits and Skip Johnson happened.
James Nesta was a Miami lean when he showed up to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And I like It took no time. No time. Like those guys got done with the visit and they didn't even need to think it over, right? Nesta announced his commitment like 3 days later. It took Tatum another month, but we all knew at that point what was happening. We all knew it was going to be Oklahoma. All the predictions reflected that. And so, man, like, just let Skip Johnson get his hands on Jonah Williams and watch the magic happen, because it will happen.
There you go. There you go. All right. We'll do one more before we get out of here. Let me find one for us that is an interesting topic. There was a good one. I gotta find it here. How about this? This one right here. Oh my god. Every time somebody does it, it puts me back to the bottom. Okay, if you have a question, ask us, because I can't seem to get back to the top of the questions. Let's see here. All right, now I'm getting back up there. Or just kidding. Parker, did you find one? Find a question for us real quick.
Okay.
Trying to interact a little bit more with the crowd in general.
The Daring
Question from
Pastry
go
says,
ahead.
I know we are trending for Tory Blaylock and have offered other big running backs in 2025. Is OU still watching Ravion Larry closely out of Ida Bell? You were so high on him and he seems so talented. Yeah, that was a guy who peaked real early.
He did. Struggled at camp.
Yeah. And that's the long and short of it. Like
Mhm.
No, I don't think he is somebody that OU takes a hard look at this point. They're taking one running back, one scholarship running back, that is. And the expectation is that that's going to be Tory Blaylock.
If not, Michael Turner Jr. would be the other one and they love Michael Turner Jr. as well. So
they love him. He loves Baylor, though.
Yeah, he does. It's kind of a weird deal, but
it's not a weird deal if you know Keenan Hall's reputation down there. Baylor is gonna. I would say Baylor right now is the team to beat for Michael Turner.
There you go. All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live, the Valentine's Day version of it. We're going to get out of here a little early because it is Valentine's Day. Go spend time with your loved ones. Enjoy them. That's what we're going to go do. Parker, I'm sure you've got a 8-hour time distance phone call to make or FaceTime to make with Miss Thune over there serving our country in Guam. So thanks to her, and happy Valentine's to her as well. So happy Valentine's Day to everybody listening. If you're not an OU Insider member right now, we've got a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of updates right now. There's a lot of 7-on-7 that's about to kick off. I know I'll be up in a big tournament next weekend in Springfield, Missouri. It's the first MoCan tournament, as a matter of fact. So I will be up in that region covering a big, and obviously watching my kids because they're playing for Sooner 7. So I'll be up there covering and being a dad at the same time. Parker will be out and about as well, whether in Oklahoma, Texas, checking out. We'll be doing a lot of hitting up schools, going and seeing some of OU's top targets around the country. We're going to be at almost all the Under Armour camps. We will be at all the Rivals camps. So make sure you're tuned in. OU Insider VIP will have you updated 25, 26, and 27 classes, which is all three of them coming up that Oklahoma is recruiting very heavily already, which shocked the crap out of me just how aggressive they've been in 26 and 27 already to this point. So we will have all that covered for you. Spring practice is rolling around. Basketball is covered really good with just extraordinarily well by Jesse and Brody. Obviously, we've got our Mullen It Over and Blake Mullins on OU Insider giving his stuff and doing a bunch of write-ups and interviews with top OU targets. We will do a lot of team stuff where we will break down the positions upcoming with Brian Clinton and all that type of stuff all through the spring, all through the summer. And OU Insider's where it's at. If you don't want to do that, it's $9.99 a month for a month. If you want to give us a try, it's $99.95 if you want to give us a whole year, which is the way to save money. And plus you get the whole season, you get all the national signing days, you get all the official visits, all that type of stuff, and just one lump sum. And it's a lot cheaper per month as well when you do that. If you don't want to do that though, right here, you can subscribe to us. OU Insider YouTube. We bring content every day to you guys. And whether it's basketball, baseball, football, softball, and we're going to talk a lot about softball moving forward. We're going to talk a lot about baseball moving forward as the NCAA tournament, the Big 12 tournament roll around. We're going to talk a lot about basketball. So we're going to have all that right here on this channel for you guys on a daily basis. So subscribe, trying to get to 16,000 by the end of spring football. So if you can help us get to that marker, we thank you guys so much, because we do this for you guys and we only do it because of you guys. Without you all, we don't have this job. So we are blessed and we thank you guys so very much. All right, that's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider and the Visor YouTube Live. For Parker Thune, for Spencer Forsythe, my name is Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed day.